1957, actually the British spends how many years? Okay, let's see. Yeah, nearly 9 years, right? Preparing the Malays for independence under the democratic government. Okay, so not surprisingly, when Malaya got independence, it adopted the British democratic system, the parliamentary system. And again, just like Thailand, right? It makes sense for the Malays because they do have monarchs, okay, the sultans. So that's all right. The British system is best for them. The Malaysia is a constitutional monarchy, okay, where the head of state is basically the Malay sultans. Okay, the 9 of them, right? Yeah, the 9 of them, they will actually decide among themselves to choose who will be the king. Okay, the Yang Di Pertuan Agong. So I want you all to actually remember this name, okay, the Yang Di Pertuan Agong. Of course, you can actually call him the Malaysian king. Actually, that is not a very good word to describe him because the Malaysian king doesn't serve as king forever. He served for only a few years. Then after that, he'll be replaced by another sultan from another state. So actually, this kingship is not really that applicable. In fact, right, the Yang Di Pertuan Agong is more appropriately translated as the supreme, the paramount ruler. Yes, the paramount ruler. So the king of kings. Okay, the Yang Di Pertuan Agong. Can I? Okay. Actually, I like to share this story that I tend to talk to about Singaporeans' ignorance. Okay, I wonder actually, right? How many of you have actually known about this thing called Yang Di Pertuan Agong? Who knows? Or heard of it? Okay. To others, it is new, something new, right? Yeah, because I did tell you, all right, in the past I worked for the travel agency, and there was an instance where they tried to book packages, right, during the Yang Di Pertuan Agong's birthday, and which means it will be a peak season, high prices. So basically what the Singaporean couple told me was, okay, why is this high prices, peak season? I told them it's the Agong's birthday, and they were telling me like, why has your Agong's birthday had to do with me? See, ignorance of Singaporeans. So that's all right. As history students, I want you all to really be more knowledgeable, okay? Okay, so here, right? So this background, by now you can see quite clearly, okay? Malaya adopted democratic government under the guidance of the British colonial masters. This is a peaceful transfer of power structured with proper tutelage. Okay, so actually from this background, you can already see their experience is going to be very different from Burma, Indonesia, and even Thailand. Okay, so remember this part about the Federation of Malay government. Essentially, it really means that the Malays were now ruling themselves with the guidance and support of the British. Okay, until 57, then the British formally handed over power to the Malays. Okay, but the other thing you must also remember about Malay's struggle for independence, it is not, of course, all smooth sailing. There were periods of tensions between the Malays and the British. But must also remember that Malaya is not only consists of Malays. There were significant numbers of minorities that all of you should know, the Chinese and Indians in particular. But actually not just Chinese and Indians. When we think about the minorities in other parts of Malaysia, East Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, who can tell me what other minority groups do you all know other than Chinese and Malays?
Ibans.
Okay, Ibans, Dayaks, very good. Okay, awesome. These are the Malaysians talking, right? Okay, yeah, so actually there are quite a number of minorities. So actually this independence drive, as I show you here in this red color bullet point, it is primarily a Malay-driven process. But unlike the case of Burma, the Malays here actually work very closely with the Chinese in particular. So actually, right, this was more like a united front, the Chinese-Malay effort, okay, to secure independence from British colonial rule. So actually that is one of the reasons why democracy was also adopted in Malaya. This is the best system, right, to reconcile this divisive society, okay, full of ethnic divisions, diversity, okay. So remember the three parties here, okay, UMNO, MCA, and MIC. All three are still present today, okay, UMNO, MCA, and MIC. Okay. Okay, now let me just show you a very quick video about the achievement of Merdeka, independence for Malaya, 1957.
I'm indeed proud that on this, the great...
Kami akan sentiasa mengingatnya dengan kesyukuran, kata Perdana Menteri dalam ucapannya, bantuan yang telah kami terima dari Great Britain dalam perjalanan menuju kemerdekaan.
Dengan nama Allah yang Maha Murah, yang Maha Kasiani, akan kekal menjadi sebuah negara demokrasi yang merdeka dan yang berdaulat, serta berdasarkan kepada kebebasan dan keadilan, dan mengekalkan keamanan di antara segala bangsa. Kuala Lumpur, 31 hari bulan Ogos tahun 57. Merdeka! 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 Merdeka!
That is Malaya getting independence in 1957. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the key leaders, right, that determine and influence, right, the political systems adopted by Malaya, and subsequently Malaysia. Now, the first leader, all of you must know, of course, is this grandfatherly guy, very important, Tunku Abdul Rahman. Most people will just call him the Tunku, Tunku Abdul Rahman, leader of UMNO, and first prime minister. So basically, this is the guy who led Malaya to independence and also entrenched the British parliamentary democratic system in Malaya. His background is that of a Malay royalty. So actually now, right, now this Malay royalty is very important because later on, when we move on to the fourth prime minister, Mahathir Mohamad, you will see conflicts, between prime ministers, leaders from royal backgrounds and those that are so-called commoners. Now, one of the reasons why I need to highlight this part about Malay royalty, right? Because remember, Malaysia is a constitutional monarchy. So actually, the head of state will come from the Malay sultans, whereas the prime minister will be from the political parties, usually UMNO, so if the prime minister is actually a Malay royalty, obviously and usually he is likely to be friendlier to the sultans because they have common interests, from the same royal backgrounds. So in that sense, this system will tend to inculcate some sort of harmony in the Malay parliamentary system, Malaysian democratic system. And Tunku Abdul Rahman, right, is also quite a special guy. He's both Malay royalty and also a very British gentleman because he was actually brought up, studied in Britain. He loved British culture and lifestyle. He adopted many of these British royal habits. Horse riding, polo, etc. And he also formed a very close friendship with the Chinese leader, Tan Cheng Lock. So these two leaders, make sure you know them, Tan Cheng Lock, Tunku Abdul Rahman and Tan Cheng Lock. Together, right, their friendship formed the basis for the successful, or rather the initially successful democratic experiment in Malaysia. Now you notice that I seldom talk about the Indians, not because I look down on the Indians, but because in the case of Malaysia, actually the Indians, right, are not very important as a political force. Now here, I think I may want to highlight a bit in case some of you get the wrong message. Why is it that I think that Indians are not very important in Malaysia? In terms of numbers, actually, you look at the Indians in Malaysia, right? Actually, they constitute a significant percentage, okay? Less than 10%, of course, but still a significant percentage. But why do I say that as a political force in voting for elections, they are not important? Who can tell me? Okay, now this one, just tell you straight, okay? Essentially, the whole idea is, unlike the Chinese, right, where they are usually concentrated in a few states, which are the states where you have huge numbers of Chinese in Malaysia?
Penang.
Sorry?
Penang.
Penang, very good. Penang, in fact, is a Chinese majority, yeah? It's not just, yeah.
Perak also, right?
Johor, very good. What else?
Perak.
Perak, okay, yes. Malacca, but Perak not so much nowadays, okay? But the fact is, the Chinese side, as a population size, in these states, they form a significant voting population. Now, the Indians are different. The Indians are dispersed throughout Malaysia. So actually, their numbers look good at the national level, but in the state level, right, actually they are insignificant as a voting force. Okay, so this is one of the reason why the Malays and the Chinese together, they play a very big role in Malaysian politics even today. Okay. Okay, yes, so Tunku Abdul Rahman, can I? Okay, so but you notice that he would resign later after the racial riots in KL. This one I'll touch more on it when it comes to the topic of national unity in Malaysia. Okay. So after Tunku Abdul Rahman, right, the next leader is also very important because this leader would transform Malaysia's system from this very Western liberal democratic system that is favored by the Tunku. Okay, Tunku Abdul Rahman clearly favors the Western liberal model, but Tun Abdul Razak, okay, the second Malaysian Prime Minister, and in case you all should know, right, if you remember the post Prime Minister Najib Razak, okay, this guy is the father of Najib. Okay, so Tun Abdul Razak, second Prime Minister, he retained the democratic system, but you notice that he changed it. Okay, here I didn't really put it here, but he's the leader most responsible for transforming Malaysia's system from a liberal model into more of an authoritarian model. So when we talk about democratic system being not very liberal, right, more like maximum government, we talk about Tun Abdul Razak. Okay, just like in Singapore, we talk about democratic model not being very Western liberal style, right? Who do we attribute it to? LKY, correct? Okay, so just like Tun Abdul Razak also have a very illustrious background. Okay, Malay aristocrat family. He's not royalty, of course, but he's definitely close to the royal families as well. So that's why, right? In this sense, there's some sort of continuity, but yet also a very dramatic change in how Malaysia was governed. Okay, so again, I'm going to talk more about the authoritarian democratic model under Tun Abdul Razak later. Okay, but he didn't last long in office because he is a very hardworking leader. In fact, even during Tunku's time, right, as the deputy prime minister, okay, Razak, okay, most people will agree that Razak did most of the work, okay, even as deputy prime minister. Okay. Okay, now the third prime minister, I shall skip. Okay, not very important. Okay, Hussein on. Okay, I'm more interested in the fourth prime minister. Who can tell me who?
Mahathir.
Yeah, the guy who continues to haunt us today. Okay, the fourth prime minister of Malaysia. Now, Mahathir Mohamad is a very important leader here that you must learn about. Okay, fourth prime minister, of course, he came back later. Dr. Mahathir. Why is he called Dr. Mahathir? Because he's a doctor. Okay, very clear. Now, unlike the previous prime ministers you have learned about, including even the third prime minister, Mahathir was the only one who didn't actually go overseas, right, to study. Okay, he didn't go study in Europe. He actually studied locally in Singapore in this sense, okay, and became a doctor. So this is the first commoner Malay prime minister in Malaysia. He has no links to the Malay royalty, and in fact, during his term of office, and even today, I should say even today, there continue to exist some sort of tensions between him and the royal family. Because to Mahathir, right, he actually hated the royal family. He feels that he does not respect people who are born into privilege. He believes that we should work hard for what we gain and not get it just simply because you are born into this background. Okay? But Mahathir, the key thing we are learning about Mahathir, right, because he did the most work, right, to actually undermine Malaysia's democratic system. He made Malaysia's system really, really authoritarian, okay, and to some extent even autocratic. Okay, it was under him where the position of prime minister, right, was extremely powerful. Okay. But of course, he later also suffered a challenge from internally, okay, from fellow UMNO leaders, okay, but he managed to survive it, okay, and he continues to be the longest serving Malaysia prime minister in history. Yeah, Lee Kuan Yew and Mahathir, by the way, they hated each other. So again, both are very strong leaders. Okay, now let's talk about the democratic phase. Okay, so the democratic phase of Malaya, right, from independence in 57 all the way under 69. Okay, so this one, take note. Okay, from 57 until 1969, Malaysia, okay, remember they became Malaysia in 63, yeah? Okay, so Malaysia was run under this Western style democratic model, okay, from the British system. I talk about the three political parties, right? UMNO, MCA, and MIC. Together, right, these three form this thing called the Alliance, okay? Remember this name, the Alliance. These three parties form the Alliance. So we call the ruling government the Alliance government, okay? And they rule the country from during this democratic period. Now, as I already told you, right, the alliance model, right, mainly worked because of the close working relationship between the Chinese and the Malay leaders, okay, because they all shared more or less the same educational backgrounds. They were educated in Britain, they speak English, they have similar British inspired sports, okay, and pastimes, okay, they love drinking English tea, for instance, okay, so there are a lot in common. And of course, it also helps that, in case you don't know, right, the Chinese leaders that we talk about, they are not your the Chinese leaders from China. They are actually locally born Chinese. So what we call the Peranakan Chinese, Baba Chinese. So they actually speak Malay. Okay. So all these help to facilitate a very good working relationship during this early period of democracy. Okay, so notice all the key points are highlighted in color. Okay, Article 153. This one is also very important. Okay, because this will be one of the key spark, right, for the racial riots later. Okay, as the minorities become, mainly the Chinese, become unhappy with the dominance, the political dominance of the Malays. Essentially, right, the alliance model, right, is based on this so-called informal bargain. In return for the Chinese continuing to dominate the Malaysian economy, that means this rich Chinese, minority Chinese, the Malays will be the political masters of Malaysia. So they will ensure political dominance for the Malays. So basically, right, this bargain, the Malays have the power, the Chinese have the money. As long as this bargain holds, Malaysia will be happy. But the moment, right, this bargain breaks, that means that the Malays start to feel that, hey, why should the Chinese have all the money? And similarly, why do the Chinese start to feel, why do the Malays have all the power? That's when you will see all these breaks and cracks starting to happen. And the crack happened because of this guy called Lee Kuan Yew, okay? When Singapore joined Malaysia, okay, in 1963, okay? Because Lee Kuan Yew challenged this whole alliance model, okay, where you neatly divide people into races and allow this to basically become a Malay-dominated country. Basically, Lee Kuan Yew's idea is, in a multicultural country, there should be equality, okay? There shouldn't be the fact that, okay, you must be a Malay to be prime minister, etc., okay? It depends on ability, and your party should not appeal to a specific race. It should appeal to a broad range of ethnic group. So actually, when PAP joined in, right, and came into the Malaysian politics, okay, it was a huge challenge to the Malayan alliance model, okay? And that is one of the reasons that eventually created huge tensions and forced the Tunku, right, essentially to kick out the PAP and Singapore, okay, from Malaysia. bear in mind, Lee Kuan Yew's impact is not just, okay, during the Singapore's inclusion in Malaysia, there were actually 2 racial riots, okay, both as a result of this tensions going on. If you're interested, please Wikipedia it. I'm not going to cover it, okay, but this will be relevant later for our national unity topic. But when Singapore was actually kicked out from Malaysia, right, actually Sabah and Sarawak, I have to say, they also felt a little bit worried, okay, that's why they actually wanted to break away from Malaysia as well. But the Tunku Abdul Rahman took very decisive measures to clamp down on these attempts at breaking away from Malaysia. Okay, so actually, yeah, it is a very high tensions period. Okay, up till now, anyone have any questions? I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay, you notice this last part I talk about 2 new opposition parties. The Pan-Malaysian, right, Islamic Party and the Democratic Action Party. Does DAP remind you of anything?
P.
Yes, the PAP. DAP is actually modeled after PAP, yeah? Yeah. In fact, their symbol is very similar, okay? So PAP symbol is a thunder, lightning strike. Okay, not thunder, lightning strike. But for DAP's model, I think it's an aeroplane, right? A rocket, no, rocket, yes, not airplane, rocket. So it is a Chinese majority party and it is the ruling party in Penang, okay? The Chinese majority province, state, I mean, of Malaysia. And then Parti Islam Serve Malaysia, right? This one is a direct challenger to UMNO. UMNO supposed to represent the Malay votes, but Parti Islam Malaysia is direct challenge to UMNO in competing for Malay votes, okay? So one of the reasons why these 2 opposition parties can rise up and become prominent because the alliance model is failing towards the later years, okay? As the informal bargain became forgotten and both groups, Chinese and Malays, wanted more for themselves, okay? So here, right, you notice that I make no mention of the military for the very simple fact that actually in Malaysia's case, the military has very little role in the whole decode process, correct? They didn't play a key role in liberating Malaya. All this while, Malaysia has been under this very clear system where the civilians control the military. Okay. Okay, but unfortunately, finally it culminated in the May 13, 1969 riots, okay? So if you know, right, in Singapore, we commemorate 21st July 1964 Racial Harmony Day because that is the outbreak of our first racial riots. So for Malaysia, right, 13 May is always also a very important date to remember, okay? The outbreak of the KL racial riots. Essentially, the idea is in 1969, general elections were held, okay? UMNO, okay, continue to win, of course, but this time, their victory margin has been greatly reduced dramatically, okay? And in contrast, right, the opposition parties, okay, DAP, Parti Islam Serve Malaysia, they won big victories, okay? They gained a significant share of the votes. Actually, in some sense, right, similar to what we see in the just concluded Singapore elections. But the difference is this time, the opposition parties, in particular the DAP, the Chinese supporter side, they held the huge victory party, okay? And and culminate, right, and spark off these bloody riots. Okay, so with okay, hello, yes.
You let go.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
No, like you legged off at the last part there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You were at the DAP held a huge party.
Okay, DAP. I had a huge victory party. Correct, yes. And UMNO also led a counter victory party. So with these groups of supporters on the streets, you can imagine how the riots will break out, okay, on 13 May 1969. Okay. But one thing that the key learning point from the rise for the government, of course, is the alliance model cannot work. Remember the alliance model, right? Consists of the UMNO, MCA, and MIC. So basically, it's three parties. Together, they run the government. But by 1969, right, what the elections and the riots showed is that these three parties by themselves can no longer run the country by themselves. That's all right. They need to broaden, okay, the basis of the governing model. So they changed the alliance model into something that we continue to learn today. Be Barisan Nasional, or in English, National Front. So alliance, three parties. Now, after 69, Tun Abdul Razak, right, which is a new prime minister, okay, adopted a new model, now invited opposition parties to join the government. So basically, right, instead of just being three parties, now Barisan Nasional government has a lot more parties inside. So in a sense, right, if you look at what Malaysia is doing, right, their approach is different to what you have learned in the other countries you have learned so far. Because instead of suppressing the opposition, what the Malaysian government did was to co-opt. Okay, now the word here, okay, this word, co-opt the opposition. Basically, right, make the opposition part of your government. Actually, here I'm curious. If you are the opposition, right, would you accept the government's offer to be part of this government? Correct. I wonder, how would you respond? The government invites you to be part of the government after you have campaigned on opposing them. And you're elected by the people, of course, because of that. Would
Not
you?
really.
What?
Not really, but there's still the point of you getting more voice. Your voice will be heard better when you join them as well.
But if you're a politician, what will be your consideration if you join the government, even though you are the opposition? Actually, one consideration will be, would you be re-elected in the next elections? Because in a sense, right now you are seen as breaking what you are campaigning for, isn't it? But in the Malaysia's case, right, most of the opposition parties joined the BN government. Do you know why?
Incentives.
Incentives, very good. By joining the government, you can be part of the government to get more money. Yes, personal wealth incentives, correct. Okay, so during the racial riots period, democracy was actually suspended in Malaysia. So actually, unlike Singapore, Malaysia did experience a period, essentially, they were under so-called, I would say military rule, okay, martial law, okay, to restore order to a chaotic situation. Then after that, 73, they restored the civilian government, okay, a democratic system, but this time with a lot of changes, such that it is no longer liberal. It is become more like a maximum government. So here you can see the different manners in which the BN government, led by the subsequent prime ministers, how do they retain this so-called democratic model while exerting a very authoritarian hold over the country, okay? Part of the reason is because they have very strong leaders, okay? Unlike the weak leaders like UNU or even Sukarno for that matter, Tun Abdul Razak and Mahathir Mohamad, they are very, very strong and forceful leaders, okay? They control the party very tightly, okay? And even when faced with a personal challenge to his leadership, you can see that even Mahathir managed to. In fact, Mahathir has overcome quite a few crises in his time as prime minister. This was probably one of his biggest challenges, but he also managed to survive it and continue in his role as prime minister. Yeah, the reason why it's called Parti Melayu Semangat 46, basically means the spirit of, okay, because UMNO was created in the year 1946. So basically they are talking about UMNO losing its original spirit and purpose, okay? So that's why Tunku Razali, right, is now challenging, okay, Mahathir for leadership. Okay, and of course, the other way, remember carrot and stick, okay? So carrot, very important. Okay, do everything properly, legally. Okay, change the constitution, introduce the proper legal measures. So Constitutional Amendment Act, right? Okay, protect the special position of the Malays. Okay, created a Barisan Nasional, as I said, instead of suppressing the opposition, make them join the government. Okay, let them make this a more inclusive government. Okay, so that the opposition will no longer oppose you because now they share the same stake as you. And the other thing, very important, make sure that the military does not challenge you. Okay, so here, this idea of entrenching the principle of civilian control. Okay, y'all can hear me, yeah? Okay. So that's why in Malaysia, right? Actually, I wonder, do you even know of any famous generals or military officers in commanders in Malaysia? I don't think anyone of you actually have any idea of that because in a sense like this already shows the effectiveness of this whole idea of civilian control over military. Okay, but stick approach is also a must. Okay, all of you should know about this thing called the ISA, the Internal Security Act, correct? Basically allows you to detain anyone, okay, deemed as constituting a threat to national security, as defined by the government, of course, okay, without trial. Yeah, so actually Mahathir has used it, okay, I think at least twice in his time as Prime Minister. The most famous one being the 1987 Operation Lalang, basically, right, to sweep up, okay, opposition members, okay, political opposition to his rule, okay, using the ISA. Now, I also want to talk about this idea of checks and balance. Yeah, this one I realize I've actually give you talk too much about that. Now, one of the basic importance, key features of a Western democratic model is this idea of checks and balances. The whole idea is, let's say, right, in the case of a British parliamentary system, the Prime Minister is the most powerful person, correct? But his power is supposed to be constrained by the head of state. So whether it's the president or the king. And similarly, parliament is also supposed to control the prime minister, okay? Because the prime minister needs to answer to parliament as well. And finally, if there are conflicts among the different branches, then the judicial branch, that means the Supreme Courts, okay, the different courts will come in to arbitrate and give a judgment to clear all these conflicts. So that's why this is what I call about checks and balances in democratic system, okay, without which there'll be an abuse of power. But if you look at the case of Malaysia, right, especially under Mahathir, what he did was, okay, first thing, he, okay, actively used the Internal Security Act to suppress opposition. And more importantly, he actually removed the system of checks and balances in the democratic system, okay? So the head of state, okay, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, has the right to veto any legislation passed by parliament. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong can actually say no, right? And more importantly, the Malay Sultans, they are exempted from criminal prosecution. So all these, right, can actually serve to constrain the ability of the prime minister to exercise unimpeded power. Okay, but under Mahathir, he removed it. How he removed it, right, is very simple. Essentially, the Malay Sultans, right, yeah, they are, let's just say that many of them, they are not exactly role models. So for instance, right, those of you who have been to JB, right, you will know that when you go through the JB customs, you have a chop at this complex called the Sultan Iskandar complex, correct? Yeah. Do you know that Sultan Iskandar, right, this guy, he actually murdered someone, okay? He actually killed, okay? If I don't recall wrongly, right, one of these golf cabbies, okay? Playing golf, he got angry and he basically killed this golf cabbie. What happened to him? Do you know? What happened to this Sultan?
Nothing.
Nothing, because as royalty, he is immune from criminal prosecution. Okay, and I can tell you this is just one of many glaring offenses committed by the Malay royalty. All this royalty under Mahathir, before Mahathir, right, they were heated, hushed up. But under Mahathir, different. He played up all these atrocities committed by the Malay sultans so that he get public sympathy and anger against royalty. And using this backdrop, right, he managed to remove their powers. Okay, now, although, right, looking at this, you would think that Mahathir is justifying what he did. But this comes at a very dangerous cost for Malaysia, because that means that the prime minister's power is essentially no one can control him. And under Mahathir, right, the prime minister's position became the strongest, okay? Way stronger than the democratic system was supposed to be. Okay, wait, let me see what happened. Okay, okay, then finally, let's talk about Cold War. Okay, yeah, the Malay emergency. Okay, so y'all need to know, right? Unlike the case for Burma, Thailand, right, and even Indonesia, actually, right, when Malaya got independence in 1957, the communist uprising were more or less crushed, okay, by the British. Okay, so in a sense, right, Malaya got independence without any serious threat of communist uprising. But there still remained a very small-scale insurgency, right, led by the MCP. Okay, they refused to be crushed. They started another insurgency. But overall, right, what I can say is actually the communist side threat to Malaya was not very strong. It was rather weak. Okay, partly because the MCP has a very serious problem. It was not actually a multiracial communist party. It was mainly a Chinese party. And in the context of Malay majority in Malaysia, obviously MCP have very little hope, okay, of winning anything. Okay, so that is mainly. And the other thing you must also remember, as long as your country is prosperous, actually generally communism doesn't have much appeal. And in the case of Malaysia, okay, the government will prove to be very successful economically. And that again, of course, diminish, okay, the impact of communism. Okay, so this last part for Malaysia very important. Why is it that even though it is a democratic system, but we call it a maximum government? Okay, so all these parts about, these are the key features that the Westerners would associate with liberal democracy. Without this, they wouldn't consider your system to be democratic. So looking at this, and based on what I've covered, and you can read it in your lecture notes also, you can see why Malaysia wouldn't be considered a democratic system. Okay, checks and balances, not really there. Free and fair elections. Free, yes. Is it fair? That's where the challenges come in. And this idea of freedom of speech, you all know that if you dare to say anything promoting hatred, right, or racial tensions online or in any publications, you can be charged or prosecuted. Okay, this one is the legacy of the Malaysian riots of 1969. And same for Singapore, we also have this law, legacy of our 64 riots. Okay, so with this, in a sense, the Westerners will see it as curbing the freedom of expression. Okay, especially with mass media. So there's actually a very strong government influence over this. Can I? Okay, any questions for Malaysia? Okay, let me stop for a while. Any questions? Feel free to ask first. Before I take 5 minutes to cover Singapore, because I hope all of you should be familiar with Singapore. Okay, no questions. Everyone clear about Malaysia? Okay, then let me ask you a question. So can I say that democracy was successful in Malaysia? Yes or no?
Yes.
Actually,
Is it even democratic? That's where I want you all to really think about this. Because for SC questions, when you write about Malaysia, how do you classify Malaysia? Okay, is it really democratic? How do you?
Asian democracy.
Asian democracy, very good. Procedural democracy. Okay, in this case, is democracy a success in Malaysia? Is it really a symbol of success, okay, in Southeast Asia? Okay, now let's go to another similar example. Our favorite country, Singapore.
Can we say it's like illiberal democracy, but
Yes,
if it's Western style liberal democracy, then cannot. Then it's not successful.
correct. It depends on how you define it. Your definition in any essay is critical, okay? Because we will judge your essay based on how you define certain terms. Okay, so now Singapore, our favorite Singapore. Yes. Malaysia have their Petronas Twin Towers. We have our MBS. And I like to think that the MBS is way prettier, okay, than the Petronas Twin Towers. Okay, Singapore. Where should we start our Singapore content? From which year?
After Japanese occupation.
Wow. Okay, but I want you to remember that for your syllabus, your content actually begins from the year of independence. Okay, so this one I need to emphasize to everyone. Okay, your syllabus starts from the independence of each country. So for Singapore, when were we independent?
63.
Okay, actually both answers are correct. 65, we are independent as a separate country, but technically in 63, we were independent from colonial rule, British colonial rule as part of Malaysia. So actually both years are correct. So it depends on how you describe Singapore in your case studies. Okay, so yes, we were part of Malaya. Okay, we were part of British Malaya, okay? And same thing, just like in the case of Malaya, the British also prepared us for a democratic government. They gave us a guidance in running a democratic system. Okay, they gave us the practice, basically. So eventually, right, although we talk about we are kicked out from Malaysia, but essentially it is a peaceful transfer of power, okay? So we left Malaysia and independent Singapore under a democratic system. But here, I want you all to notice a very important difference between Singapore and Malaysia. In Malaysia, right, Malaya, they did experience a period of relatively liberal democracy, okay? But in Singapore, right, what you will see is that actually, right, the moment we are independent and even way before that, right, our system was not really liberal democratic. It was already quite an authoritarian system, okay, as practiced by the PAP government led by Lee Kuan Yew. So actually, right, that's where you see, okay, that Singapore, right, we didn't really have a liberal phase, so-called, okay? We were always more of a procedural democratic system. Okay, let me just go straight. Okay, so role of leaders, there's only one leader I'm going to talk about. Who?
Lee Kuan Yew.
Yes. Okay, Lee Kuan Yew, first prime minister, okay, leader of the ruling party. Okay, Cambridge educated lawyer. So actually, right, one thing you all need to know, Lee Kuan Yew, Tunku Abdul Rahman, Tun Abdul Razak, they all were educated overseas in Britain. And in fact, they all knew each other, okay? Because it was a fairly small circle of local people, leaders from Singapore and Malaysia, right, who actually studied overseas during the colonial period. Okay, these are really the top elites. But unlike the Malaysian leaders, Lee Kuan Yew's ideal system for Singapore was quite different. He wanted a system that is not based on race or race preference. It is based on simply about meritocracy. Who deserves it, okay, should be in power. Okay, this idea of no corruption, efficiency. Okay. So there's no liberal phase for Singapore. I go straight into maximum government phase. So how did the PAP maintain its power? Unlike UMNO, which actually lost power only recently, but PAP has not lost power, okay? At least not yet. Okay, here we talk about role of leader. So Lee Kuan Yew's role is very important, okay? So this one I'm not going to say too much about it. Okay, just like in Malaysia, right? The government's legitimacy is built on being able to promote high levels of economic development and generate prosperity for its people. Okay, and that's why people supported the government. Okay, same thing, constitutional processes, how to legally make sure that you remain in power for so long. Okay, In fact, right, a recent newspaper report once actually described, right, Singapore's PAP, right, as the longest continuously elected government in the world. Okay, currently, yeah, we are actually number 1. So this was institutionalized through PAP victories, basically elections. In basically all elections, the PAP has won comfortably through a variety of means and methods, of course. Okay, but the other thing also very important, democratic system can only survive when the military and the police does not challenge you. So in a sense, just like in Malaysia, we did things, okay, created instituted controls to make sure the military do not threaten the civilian government. Actually, it's ironic, okay, because many of our leaders actually do have military background, including one military leader who was recently voted out of office. You actually know who is that?
Chi Ming.
Yang Chi Ming, who used to be education minister, used to be my boss. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so. Okay, anyway, when given an opportunity, I want to talk more about this idea of the role of the military in seemingly democratic countries like Singapore. Okay, yeah, you all recognize here, Teo Chee Hean, look very young. In case you all don't know, Teo Chee Hean was actually formerly Chief of Navy. Okay, yeah, carrot approach, clear. Okay, but the PAP of course also uses stick approach. Just like in Malaysia, we have this thing called the Internal Security Act, and the government have actually used it against political opposition. In the context of the Cold War, of course, it's very easy to brand people as communists and use it. Okay, one of the key prominent leaders will be Lim Chin Siong. But the other thing, of course, is also the PAP, right, created this thing called the National Trade Union Congress. Okay, the communists actually use trade unions to create trouble in many countries. But in Singapore's case, the PAP have a very simple solution. They control the trade union. So actually today when we talk about NTUC, we talk about supermarkets. But in fact, it is actually a trade union. And they meet the people's process. So all these measures taken together, right, help to entrench the government's control over the democratic system. Okay. Now this one, last one for today, Barisan Socialists. Okay. This is the party that is most associated with communism in Singapore, that actually posed a serious challenge to the PAP in the early years. Okay. But of course, today, no longer a big problem. Okay. The party today that is most leftist side, okay, closest association, of course, will be the Workers' Party already. But this has a different connotation today. Okay, so Barisan Socialists in the context of the Cold War period, they were targeted as communists, and the PAP used a variety of means to actually clamp down on the BS. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why PAP was able to maintain its hold on power. Okay, BS was the only party capable of challenging the PAP. Okay, so same thing, last thing for today. Okay, why is the PAP not democratic? As you can see, similar to what you have learned in Malaysia, authoritarian democracy. Okay, can. Okay, thank you.